Like it's
Alright,
a
hello there, gang. Alright, so let's try to get through this as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we've got two asteroid rebalancing options, and I'll cover the logic in both of them here in a moment. But the first things first, when you're using these blueprints, you need to have this little widget here happening, which also means you kind of have to use a sushi belt here, and the best option most compatible with this is to use the inside lane for your asteroid chunks. Now the other thing is that you will need to connect the red wire that's connected to these lights to your loop. I connected this turret, but the turret's just bouncing, extending the reach of my red wire, but this red wire is then connecting to all of the asteroid chunks, and that way I should actually disconnect this because it's reading a 0 signal here, so it's, yeah, but what this is going to do is it's going to set the filters on all of them, and it goes around the entire ship and sets the filter on every single one of your asteroid collectors, and that's going to be important because it's going to limit the amount of asteroids and the type of asteroids that we actually want to collect from space. But to jump right into this smaller option, this is 1/3 the efficiency because it's only using one crusher, so it's more efficient in terms of power, but it is less efficient in terms of space. It is a smaller footprint, but it is slightly less efficient in the space that it uses because it's mostly combinators. So first, let's break down the logic of what this is doing. The first thing it's doing here, if we were to actually just connect this to here, just to actually read the belt signal, then it's saying that all three of these are full. This should be hold, that's why it's not working. No, it should be read belt contents, hold all belt contents. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we were getting the signal. It's here, it's just showing the, anyways. So here we can see the contents of the belt in these combinators, and each one is just saying, hey look, this is the limit. So inside the constant combinator, I'm going to set the limit to L, and that's also important. You want to set the limit to what your belts could contain. So right now, if it's 160 of each of them, that means your belt must be able to contain over 480 of the asteroid chunks, and this is a huge belt. It's quite long, so that is the case here. But if you're using a much smaller belt, you probably want to use maybe 35 would be a good number for a very small ship. So you can see here that it's going to be about 4 maybe per belt unit. So if you counted your belt units, then you'd be able to get a very precise idea of what you want to limit the collecting to. However, in this case, I've got it at 160, so this is just checking then to see if the metallic asteroid chunks are less than 160, and if so, it's going to output that type as just a simple 1 signal, and then that 1 signal will get broadcast out to the red wire network that will then set your filters on the asteroid collectors, and also turn on a nice light here just indicating that that particular one is satisfied. So the next step is that it's going to then take these, this is where a bit of the magic happens here, because you're just taking each one and saying, hey, if it's 0, if metallic asteroid signal is 0 coming from these 3 combinators, then that means it's satisfied. So if the metallic asteroid is satisfied, then it checks to see if it's 1 for the other 2 asteroids, and if it is, that means that we want those. So if metallic is satisfied and we want oxide, in this case we don't, that's why it's 0 as well. But if it was, if we wanted either of these, then this would be outputting the input signal, which would then output the 241. So that's handy, because then similarly here, if we're satisfied on carbonic but we want oxide or metallic, it's going to output the carbonic signal. And then same thing here, well, that was the metallic one, but just one combinator for each one. If we're satisfied on oxide, then we want the carbonic or the metallic asteroid, then output that signal. And the beauty of this is then we can use a selector combinator with select input sort of descending to then take the index of 0, which will just take the biggest number that it's given and push that signal on. So for example, if we wanted more oxide asteroid chunks and we have enough metal and we have enough carbonic, it'll push both values to this selector, and the selector will choose the highest value, which is wonderful because then it's dynamically going to consume and crush the material that you have the most of. And then from there, with that signal from the selector combinator, we're going to send that to set the filters on this to bring in the thing that we need and also effectively disable it when we're not using it. But then these three combinators here are just going to convert that signal to an asteroid reprocessing signal of the same type, right? So if the signal from the selector is oxide asteroid chunk greater than 0, that exists, then send an oxide asteroid reprocessing signal. And similarly for here, if the carbonic is more than 0, send a carbonics reprocessing, metal reprocessing. Then that signal is sent to the crusher to set the recipe. And so that's pretty much it. It's great. It works. We can actually paste it here right onto the belt. We should also connect the wire, the red wire that's connected to the lights, to our red wire going around setting the filters. And then now if I were to set this to 100 and I think it was 190, 200, we set it to 200, then it'll turn on and it'll go for the largest quantity, and then it reprocessed that, and we actually have 200 oxide on the belt now. So that's it. It effectively rebalances the belt. So then if we'll just take that one away for now, and we'll take a quick peek at this one, which is also working on the same principle. This one has a red wire for this belt reader, but either way, it's all the same principle. We're checking to see if there's a desire for these ones. Right now there is, because this isn't actually connected. But if we connect this and say, yep, read, then now we've got that red signal for each one of those. And it's checking against the limit here as well, and saying, oh yeah, we've got more than enough for each one of those. And then that signal goes to here from these constant combinators and says, hey look, do we have more than the limit for the oxide? And then if we do we also have a desire for metallic? And in this case we don't. Or if we have enough of the oxide and there's a desire for the carbonic, if either of these two cases are true, then we're going to send a checkmark signal, and then we're just going to enable this long-handed inserter to insert into the crusher. So that's the beauty of this system. It's a little bit simpler with the circuitry, and it also can have potentially up to 2 crushers running at once for a little bit more reprocessing capacity. But otherwise, that's really it. We could also take this out and actually put it onto the belt, and then we want to attach this to our network, and then we have everything. And if I set this to 205, getting pretty full on the belt, but if I set that to 205, then these two are going to reprocess to try to get the 205 that we desire of the oxide asteroid. So in this case, it will process both the carbonic and the metallic, and now it's disabled because we actually do have 206, and that's it. Both work well, and both have their different purposes. So the blueprints will be available in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and that's all for now. We'll see you in the next one.